Hey, welcome back to another edition of the Razzball Fantasy Basketball Podcast. We are continuing on analyzing our fearless leader, Sun's rankings so far. He has them out earlier than almost anybody, so we get to pick them apart earlier than almost anybody, which is great for everyone who has an early draft. I actually had a draft today. If you can believe it. So I totally used the standings, and they really came in handy. So today we have three of the four main crew here. We have Sun. How you doing, Sun?
What's going on, Brent? How's everything? Good to have you back, Craig.
Yeah, and Craig. How you doing, Craig?
Yeah, not too bad. Yeah, a few technical issues last week. I was here in spirit. Well, I was actually here in person as well. I could hear you guys, but yeah, a bit of a equipment malfunction. But yeah, good to be back and ready to do battle.
Yeah, so Craig was trying to chime in last week. We do have our other podcast up, our number 14, where Sun and I would go through his 26 to 50 rankings. So this week we're going to pick apart his 50 to 100 rankings. So we're going to we're going to chunk it off into groups of 10, jump in, talk about who we like, who we don't like, what we agree with, and then Sun is just going to defend himself the whole time, basically.
Yeah, basically.
So now you remember what everyone's voice sounds like. Why don't we just kick it off with Sun? If you want to just start at number 51 and work your way down the list. And Craig, if the moment strikes you, jump in and comment.
All right, 51, Lauri Markkanen. 52, Lou Williams. 53, Andre Drummond. 54, Luka Doncic.
Can I stop you on Lou Williams? So
yeah.
He was one of the guys who was almost an all-star last season. Do you think he takes a step back this year with the extra talent that the Clippers have added on, or is he going to be another? Is there any chance that he is even available around the 50s in someone's draft, or do you think he's going to go much higher based on what he did last year?
To the first point, initially that was my thought too, just because the Clippers are so stacked. They had a lot of wing talent, some young talent to the draft as well. So, but when I sat down and thought about everything, I don't think he loses usage, and I think the minutes that he got last year is going to be the same. So, if those two things remain the same, he's going to jack up his shots and he's going to score. So I don't really see a reason to knock him down. I actually have just been I was working on my rankings comparison to Yahoo and ESPN. I haven't gone through the ESPN part, but the Yahoo ones, actually, I just remembered Lou Williams stuck out to me because we both had him at 51, I think. So there was no difference there. I don't know. Like, you had your draft today, so what was the market pricing Lou at?
Yeah, he was about here, honestly, and I think I even had a chance to grab him, and I needed assists, but I can't remember. I think I went with another big guy at that point. So he
was in that range. Okay.
Yeah, it is, and I think he's a good value at this point if he doesn't see much of a drop off from last year.
Okay. I mean, I don't know about value. I mean, I think he's probably priced correctly. It's probably tough to see him, increase usage or increase minutes. I just don't know how much more, ceiling there is. So, he may be priced at a ceiling, but I mean, it's a pretty, I think it's a fair price. Well, not fair. I mean, it's fair market value. I don't think it's like a great discount or anything like that.
Yeah. So
I think the one thing you do get with Lou Williams though is you do get a pretty high floor. I mean, year in, year out, he always does, you are talking at least sort of 13, 14, 15 points, even on a down season. The threes are going to be there. I think to have him any higher than the 51 that you've got, you kind of have to believe in that 5.3 assists that he put up last year, which I think, given the addition of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, potentially Jerome Robinson, although I don't see him playing much, the loaded backcourt. We've got Avery Bradley returning to a more healthy version. I think the 5.3 assists are going to be difficult for him to repeat. But I think that it's a relatively safe pick because at 51, I think the floor is still pretty high. He is going to get, at least 30 minutes a game. Yes, it is a loaded backcourt, but someone's got to score for the Clippers, right? It isn't the most naturally, highest scoring backcourt, if you like. But the issue I have with Lou Williams is I don't believe in the 5.3 assists. And I think that there will be somebody, that does. I mean, depending on the strength of owners in your league, the standard deviation, on where he's drafted is probably going to be quite high, from anywhere in the 30s to potentially, the 70s if you're in a league where they don't believe in the assist rate. So I think it's a fair price. I agree with that.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, his usage rate was 29.8, so basically 30%. That's crazy.
But that seems fair, doesn't it?
Yeah,
that
for sure. Yeah, for sure. So like in terms of the assist rate, obviously the 5.3 was a career high, but he just dominates the ball so much, and he is a willing passer. So, I don't see much higher than that, but I think in that 5 range is fair, especially with that usage rate.
Fair enough. Yeah, and I think his field goal percentage could even improve a little bit this year. If Gallinari stays healthy, which I almost couldn't say that sentence. But if Gallinari stays healthy, with Tobias Harris there, he could end up with a similar volume, but maybe a little more quality shots. I just remember last year, it seemed like at some point he was ranked like in the top 20 or something, just when he was going off there in the middle of the season. Yeah. So when I saw him in the 50s, it sort of stuck out to me a little bit, but you definitely could convince me it's fair.
There's going to be someone who falls in love with him from last year, though, aren't they? And that's kind of the thing, I think, is that, at 51, the chances are, given on what he did do last year and the tear he did put up, I think there's somebody that will live on, hang on last season's stats and fall in love with him earlier than that.
Okay.
Agreed.
Can I pick your brain then on Andre Jordan? Then you've got him at 53.
Drummond.
Sorry, Andre Jordan. Andre Drummond. Sorry.
It's kind of the same.
Quarter of 4 in the morning here, still waking up. Got him at 53, and that is probably, I don't know, let's say 20 spots lower than the consensus. I'm not wholly disagreeing with you here. I'm lower on Drummond than what most mainstream sites are, primarily because I don't fully believe in the free throw percentage sticking to where it was, the uptick that we saw last year. Also because I don't think Dwayne Casey's necessarily a great move for him. Can you give us a bit of a bit more of an in-depth dive as to why you've got Drummond lower than most sites?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. But primarily it's because of the free throw. That was just such a huge jump, and like we've discussed this in the past. Like I've seen him like playing at the Drew in the summer league and just messing around. I mean, he has pretty good form on his J, and he has nice stroke. So that always sticks in my head. But I mean, that jump from, what was he, like in the 30s, right? 30 to 60. That's just crazy. Yeah, right? Yeah. So like I do give him some benefit of the doubt just because like I see him do stuff that kind of gets me thinking like, yeah, he can increase his shooting percentage and things like that. So I think I ended him at 50, but then I guess volume weighted it gives him about 57.
Sure.
I think last year, I think volume weighted would have been much higher. So that decrease in free throw percentage, just really, it really kills his value, I think. And yeah, in terms of the new coaching situation as well, I'm with you in there. I don't think I factored in as much as you did. So for me, primarily it's the free throw shooting, but you definitely make a good point in terms of that. What's your what else you got in regards to Drummond?
No, I'm right there with you with that. Like I said, I've got him 10 spots higher than this, but it's still lower than most. And I think the 2 points of contention, like you said, is I'm not fully on board with the 60% free throw percentage yet. I'm not saying that it won't happen. I think for me, probably being a bit pessimistic, I need a larger sample size in order to fully believe in it. And I'm not, given Dwayne Casey's, penchant in the past to kind of, sit big men at crucial times. I'm not necessarily saying that's the case with Drummond. I'm just going more on the history of Casey here.
Yeah.
I think that a full season of Blake, Dwayne Casey, and the free throw percentage, I think it does bring a downtick for Drummond. I mean, we're still fundamentally talking about a guy who's only, 25, 26? I mean, it's absurd to think how young he still is. So, I don't want to put sort of too much negative on him. But when I see him going in drafts at 25, 25 to 30 range, it just seems too steep for me. So I was just wanted to see if you're on the same page as I was with that.
Yeah, no, agreed. Like, the first 2 rounds, like the top 25 around that age, that top 25, top 30, like you want guys that like pretty much are all around. They're not going to kill you in any category.
Kind of like your Corey Brewers.
We'll get there. Yeah, we'll definitely get there.
I'm with you, son. I'm all about the well-rounded player.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think once you get into like maybe like the like fourth round, maybe late third, fourth round, like that's when you start, shooting for specialists and things like that, because a lot of those all-round guys, they start to get, scooped up. So, but yeah, I'm with you. I think that's a little too high for someone that kills you so much in one particular category.
There's so many big men now, though, that don't kill you in free throws. That I can just write off guys like Drummond and Jordan, and because there's so many big men. Yeah, they maybe not, their rebounds and blocks aren't quite as crazy, but they're solid enough that you don't necessarily have to take that hit in free throws.
Okay. And what about Lauri Markkanen? You got him at 51. I see the potential for that to be too low. Might surprise a few people. I hear what you say in terms of the defensive stats won't be there. Excuse me. I actually think that when all said and done, Lauri Markkanen will be, in terms of statistically, a better defender than what most people actually think. We know about the added muscle that he's put on. I mean, he's quite lightweight at like 200 pounds, I think he is, given his size. I think you got him projected at 0.6 blocks. I actually could see, I know Wendell Carter Jr. has gone there, but I can actually see the potential of that actually being closer to the 1 mark.
To 1, okay.
And the reason for that is that, the Bulls have seemed really committed to use his length on defense. The athleticism isn't there, but the improvements from college, and that's just natural sometimes. Obviously, the full-time coaching thing, which we've discussed. But the length has and does cause problems, and I can see that closer to 1. And talking, you were talking about guys that don't really hurt you anywhere. I mean, the one place he really does hurt you is the blocks. I mean, yes, it's not elite rebounding, but he gets enough to warrant it. And I was, for a guy that was a one-and-done freshman, you compare his stats to, his kind of like-minded, European Dirk Nowitzki, if you like. His stats per 36 against Nowitzki in his rookie season, I think everything apart from blocks itself, he was higher at, and considerably so. I'm not saying that he's going to have a Hall of Fame career or anything like that. I think there's a chance. But I think that it's definitely a guy to keep an eye on. I know Jabari's there, and that's going to, potentially affect things whilst it all sort of irons itself out. But I think there is the potential there that, if the blocks can get closer to 1, Lauri Markkanen has the potential to actually be a steal come draft day.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, for me, defense, a lot of defense is attitude and, willingness to want to do it, right? The willingness to be a dog. A lot of it is just pure effort. So, when I watched him play in the Eurobasket last summer, like I was really impressed. Like he has dog in him, and like he's willing to battle, he's willing to fight. So what you're saying in terms of increase in blocks, yeah, like I can see it, right? Because half the battle is putting that effort in, and like you said, he is very long. So yeah, I'm with you. There's definitely within the range of outcomes for sure.
And one of the things I learned today doing a draft it was on Yahoo, by the way, is that, and this is, just using Suns rankings the last couple of years, and I know how he does it, and I believe him. That's why I do use those as sort of a baseline. But a lot of these guys, like where they are, like Drummond, if you set up, like, say you set up your pre-draft rankings like you can on Yahoo, you just know you're not getting Drummond. You're not getting Markkanen, where they're at. But the flip side's true, too. Those are the next two guys on the list at 54, Luka Doncic, and 55, Jonas Valanciunas. At 54 and 55, more than likely, fans of Suns rankings are going to end up with Doncic and Valanciunas on their team. If their draft is going that way. I know I nearly got Doncic, and the only reason I didn't get him is because there was a Ukrainian guy in my league randomly who took him like 3 picks ahead of me, where I was about to grab him as my next kind of point guard guy.
Where did he go?
Oh shoot, I should have wrote down like every round. I want to let me pull up my team really quick. I can tell you, but if you want to just go through your thoughts on Doncic and having him here, because basically where you're ranking him, he's going to end up on a lot of teams that look at these rankings. Yeah. And I was curious if Craig thinks he should be there as well.
Yeah, I mean, let me just preface this. I think this is something that I need to say more often than not. But like, rankings are just one tool, right? Like I always say this. It's in a vacuum, like you have to use them in conjunction with league context, ADP data, things like that. Like that show Antiques Roadshow. These guys go to the garage sale, find a painting for like $2, and then they go and they get it appraised, and it's worth like $200,000. Like if somebody knows something is worth $200,000, but you're able to get it for $2, you're not paying $200,000 for it, right? You're gonna try to get it for as cheap as you can. So, you have to. You have to use that and realize that when you're using any type of rankings, actually.
I want to say it was around the 6th round in a 14 team.
Okay, so that's fair because when
I think I took Batum instead of him, because I didn't get Doncic.
Okay, because when I was just looking at the Yahoo rankings earlier today, they have him at 146. So I don't know if that's the default rankings or the draft rankings.
Yeah, like I said, the only reason I didn't get him on my team, like that's where he was. The only reason I didn't get him is because there was some guy from like his Serbia or Ukraine, somewhere that wanted him. Otherwise, he was gonna be on my team.
Okay, so
and they also had Kawhi Leonard at 5 or something.
Okay. So wait, so was Doncic ranked in the 140s in the draft in the rankings, or he was? Okay.
Yeah, he was ranked in the 140s. Like a lot of these guys, like Jaren Jackson, and then were like in like the 500s. Like so, a lot of the rookies, especially like Ayton, like guys who are fans of your draft, they're gonna get Ayton more than likely. The only reason I didn't get him is because I took Capella instead, because I had really good free throw shooters, so I figured I could take the hit. But a lot of people are going to get Ayton, a lot of people are going to get Jackson, Wendell Carter, just based on where you have these rookies. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I love Doncic. I mean, he has size, right? 6'8", he can handle the rock. He can rebound, pass. His IQ is off the charts. Court awareness, blah 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 blah. He has moxie, and he's not your typical rookie, right? Like he's been playing pro ball since 16. He signed with Real Madrid like 14, right? So he's been playing ball.
Like, 13.
Yeah, 13, right? So like, and he was like, winning MVPs and dominating in the second best league in the world. So he's gonna come over here. I think he's gonna be able to adjust very well because he has all the the technical fundamental skills, but I think he also has the moxie too. Kind of like what I was talking about with Markkanen. Like he's not backing down. He's gonna come at you. He has a bevy of moves to get his shot off, and for me, I'm very excited to see what he and DeAndre Jordan and Dennis Smith Jr. are going to be able to do. I can't wait to see how many Luka oops he throws to DJ, and that's going to be really fun. Craig, you're the guy in Europe, so.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that really impressed me with Doncic is, the NBA for me has now transitioned from, needing this elite athleticism and isolation play into, it seems more key now to be able to create offense from the perimeter. Doncic isn't the most athletic guy. It's well documented. But this day, you don't need to be, the high basketball IQ, the way he can create on the perimeter, he's going to get his. Which we are talking a unique specimen here. I think the athleticism is slightly underrated. I'm not saying he's a big time NBA athlete by any stretch of the imagination, but he's no Milos Teodosic either. I think that there's enough there, but the way that he can create on the perimeter is going to have such an impact on this league. The shooting will get better. I think the shot form's decent. It's not elite. But we now live in this age, I think, where, it's all about being able to, avoid the isolation play, move the ball quickly, create perimeter offense. And I think Doncic now fits what's now the modern NBA really, really well. I think he would have struggled more so 10 years ago or 15 years ago. But I have no concerns whatsoever. And like you, I think the personnel around him and the fit, and Rick Carlisle, the style of play that he plays, I think everything's there for Doncic to be, a really, really outstanding NBA player.
I would have happily drafted him at this spot.
Yeah, I'm 54. I've got no issues with that whatsoever. I mean, we're talking about a guy that isn't, potentially, if you discount blocks, he's probably going to be a positive in just about every other cat. So, with the potential to be even better than what we think. I think there's a high floor, and I think there's a high ceiling. And when we're in that 50s range, that's exactly what we're looking for, right?
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, yep. He's gonna, he has the ability to mess around on every night, any given night. Triple doubles. I can't wait to see him pull out his little Dirk step back for three. That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, some of the shots that he gets off is unbelievable. One-footed, sideways. It's almost like watching sort of Spider-Man at times.
Yeah,
and this is from an unathletic guy, but it's just those. High basketball IQ now is just an absolute must, especially for a creator. We've got much, much better wing defenders now in the league, and that's become a necessity. I think that the court vision's elite, the ball handling's elite, the basketball IQ's elite. I think everything's there for him to really succeed. I know there's a lot of doubters, but I've never been one of them. He's always been number one in my rankings, in the rookie rankings. I know you got DeAndre Ayton higher, but not for me. Doncic is still my number one.
No, I mean, he was my number one guy in the draft. But I just think that the situation that Ayton is in, just raw numbers, I think he's going to put up, more raw numbers. But I think Doncic is going to have a bigger impact in terms of his team.
Yeah, seems fair.
Yeah, and speaking of Ayton, there's DeAndre Ayton light at number 55. Jonas Valanciunas. He's one of those guys where you have him ranked higher than where Yahoo does. So, he was sitting there, and I'm looking at him, and I needed another. I needed boards. I needed solid rebounding, solid percentages, and he's one of those centers that's there who can shoot free throws, who's going to put up really good field goal percentage. He can get you 20 points some nights. He can get you 20 and 10 with a block or two. At least a steady 15 and 8 with a block. So I never have a problem having JV on my team, especially now that you mentioned with Pirtle gone and with Casey gone. I mean, do you think? Obviously, agree. You put him at 55. So, would you be disappointed to have him on your team?
No,
I would.
You would?
Yeah. If there's two guys in this 51 to 60 range, which is too high for me, it's Valanciunas and it's JJ Redick. The issue I have with Valanciunas is on any given night, he can disappear. It's sometimes not just a night; it can be stretches. We're talking about a guy that. He isn't an elite shot blocker. I mean, he's one block a game, if that.
Right.
We're not talking about an elite shot blocker, and there just isn't enough there outside of the points, points and rebounds, and okay free throw percentage. It doesn't excite me. It's the kind of stats that he puts up. I kind of feel I can stream later on and get just a return, just the same return, if that makes sense. So. Whereas a guy like Markkanen, for me, he isn't going to get the blocks. he's going to offer a lot more diversity and a lot more upside to my team. But count me out on Valanciunas in that range.
Valanciunas is one of those guys I see where you could decide to go kind of wing heavy early on, and knowing you can sort of fill out your center position with someone who's not going to hurt you. That's how I look at him.
Yeah, no, it's it's like similar to the debate of like Otto Porter or like Bradley Beal, Klay Thompson stuff, right? Like the high floor guy that'll contribute a little bit everywhere but won't kill you in anything, versus the guy that offers more upside but maybe lacking in some areas. So it's just a matter of preference, right? And that just goes back to when you look at rankings, it's all about context, right? And you have to put in your own personal biases, your own personal risk reward, personal context, all that into it. And like I know Craig is a guy that he shoots for upside, right? Because he feels like he can make it up where he's lacking in his categories later. And that's no doubt, like that's definitely a way to do it. And so just a matter of your preference, your risk tolerance, and what you feel comfortable doing. So
yeah, it's funny because Craig totally is a high ceiling guy, and I'm a high floor guy for sure.
Beautiful, yin and yang, baby.
And they both work. It was like today I had the first pick in the 14-team draft. I decided to go with Harden over Anthony Davis, just strictly because I feel like there was more people. I feel like there was more good big men available later on than guys who do what Harden does. But also, I just felt like Harden, if you take the injury history into, Harden just felt like the safer pick at number one, and that's really the main reason why I decided to do it. And it's cost me and it's helped me. So, I just don't like rolling the dice as much.
Yeah, no, there's many different strategies, many different ways to be successful in fantasy. So, you just have to go with what you feel most comfortable doing.
So what is it with Reddick, Craig, that, is it that has you thinking he's ranked a little too high here?
When we're talking about JJ Reddick, I mean, I'm sure some of this value Sun's going to tell me is blocked into a low turnover rate, which, as a non-sort of ball handling guard, really you kind of expect. Again, we're talking about really a one category specialist, excellent 3-point shooter. There's no doubt in that. But he's not really going to offer me anything else. He's going to have some flashy points nights, but at the same time, he's going to have nights where he disappears in that offense as well. Again, if I'm chasing threes, which I think is probably the easiest category to chase, I can just do that later on in the draft, or I can do that by streaming, on certain matchups, I feel. So at 59, I think that, this is an absolute ceiling for Reddick, and it's probably, 60, 70 places too high for me, especially given the fact that we've got a young offense there where, there's still areas of Ben Simmons' game that's ready to take to the next level offensively. We've got Embiid there. It's just too high for me. I can't justify sort of a one category specialist in the first sort of 5 or 6 rounds of my draft, I'm afraid. And like I said, this is an absolute sort of ceiling projection. Just count me out for one category specialist in this range.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's definitely a ceiling projection. Like you said, a lot of his value is baked into the low turnovers and high efficiency. But I think the difference between him and like the 3-point specialist later in the draft is that, he will pull down like 2-3 boards a game and dish out three assists. And I think he's getting over 30 minutes a game. Whereas a lot of those 3-point, specialists later, you can't really rely on that. And, it comes back, value, safety, opportunity, and upside, right? Like Reddick's floor is so high, right? Especially in that offense surrounded with the talent that he's playing with. You can pretty much bank on a certain level every single night. Whereas, guys later in the draft, it's definitely more volatile. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Definitely ceiling outcome here. And, just all comes back to risk reward, right?
Yeah,
Sure,
a lot of the guys are going to stream. A lot of the guys are going to stream for threes or something like that. Are going to be more. They might consistently give you the threes, but they're going to be inconsistent in the other categories. Whereas Redick, yeah, it's sort of boring night in and night out, but like Sun said, the consistency is going to be there in more than just the threes category. Like, you're going to get some assists. You're going to get. He's going to shoot free throws. So
I just don't think there's enough there to warrant, the assist rate, a couple of rebounds. I just don't think there's enough there to warrant it. He is literally, in my mind, a 3-point specialist.
The numbers speak for themselves, Craig.
Yeah.
Well, that's if you believe in the numbers. But again, I think, like you said with the Otto Porter thing, this is holding the holding value into the efficiency and turnovers thing. And from a guard's point of view, yes, 1.5 turnovers is an attractive proposition. But when you actually balance that into, a category versus turnover rate, it just, apart from 3 points, it just isn't very exciting. And I think that picking 59, Redick at 59, you're not, you're really hurting your chances at winning a league. I think it's, you're punting for a mid-table finish with these sort of high ceiling picks that relying on turnovers for value, rather than reaching for not even reaching, but guys that have that sort of superstar ceiling. Which there's still some guys in this range with that. So yeah, it's not for me. It's way too.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Like I said, it all comes down to style, right? And league. A team context, right? It really depends on who you're drafting. Like, if you have a lot of, high risky, high upside guys early in the draft, right? And you want some stability, you get them, and vice versa. Like Redick last year, basketball monster, he ended up as a 70th overall player, So, I mean, the numbers do speak for themselves, but it's just a matter of philosophy, I think. That's where it comes down to, like, floor versus upside. That's like the great debate, right? So, it's team construction, right? You can't have a team with all upside, all risky guys, right? There has to be some semblance of balance, and it's the puzzle, right? You have to fit the right pieces into the right places, and when you combine everything and everything morphs into that amoeba, that's able to flow like water, then that's when you crack the matrix, right? So. Yeah, it's just all context philosophy.
Another piece that's gonna potentially be there is 61 Serge Ibaka, where you have him here. He was the guy that I was kind of torn on today during the draft, and I passed on him for maybe, I think, a little more consistency. But what do you think is? I mean, man, Ibaka is one of the more frustrating guys, because I, like you, Son, like you mentioned here, I wish you could go your DeLorean and go back to 2011 when he was just a freak. And, and then, like the dream set, who could hit 2 threes and 3 or 4 blocks a game. When I looked at the rankings and the stats, I mean, it seemed like this was sort of this best case scenario. I'm just not that sold on him. Either of you guys want to sell me on him, or are you guys right in line with we'll take a pass?
This, to me, this is more of an opportunity play. Like, I've hated watching Serge for the last few years, just because Father Time has caught up, and some of the business decisions that he's been making. He just kind of wants to just kind of like chill out on the perimeter and shoot Jays. And I mean, he was an animal early in his career, like close to 4 blocks a game. It was sick, right?
Yep.
But now the role that he's in, like, because Poto's gone, I think the rotation in the front court, it slims down, right? So I have him down for 28 minutes with upside for more, right? Because it's going to be him, Sekhem, and Jonas Valanciunas, and there's a chance that Ibaka plays a lot at the 5, right, in the small ball, because that's going to be a pretty nasty lineup, like what Viz was saying, right? What, Lowry, Green, Miles, Kawhi, OG? OG. Yeah, Green, Lowry, Kawhi, OG, Ibaka. Like, that's nasty, right? So there's definitely, I guess this is more of a volume opportunity play, just because I feel like he's gonna get so many minutes.
I think for all of us who miss Serge Ibaka, we now have moved on to Jaren Jackson Jr. and Ibaka's just a memory.
I love Jaren Jackson. So good.
He's going to do that 3-point shooting, 5 blocks a game. Sorry, Craig.
Do you think that Serge sort of, for me, serves as that reminder that blocks is a category over a player's career that really does regress? You think about all the elite shot blockers that were putting up 2.8 to 4 blocks a night, and at some point, and it happens relatively quickly, that category seems to just fall off of a cliff. Whether it's
Dwight
Howard,
totally.
Andre Jordan, or Andre Drummond. It seems every year that there's these guys that go from, let's just say, 2.8 blocks a game, and suddenly it sort of like bottoms out to 1.3 or 1, a real considerable amount. I think Serge, for me, he always just sort of is that constant reminder that this is a category which regresses and can regress really, really fast.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's all reaction time. Yeah, it doesn't take many extra years on the brain to lose that reaction time, or smoking a few things into the brain to slow that reaction time. Aaron Gordon, kind of where you have Aaron Gordon here at 62, I think he's going to be gone, well before this. He's a guy I really like, but I doubt I'll have it on any of my teams. What do you think about Gordon this year?
Yeah, I mean,
still just 22 years old.
Yeah, 22. Yeah, go for it, Craig.
Yeah, still just 22 years old. I think, again, if you can stomach the free throw percentage, given the personnel that the Magic have got as well, there's going to be plenty of ball handling opportunities. They seem really intent on making sure that that they've got forwards who can handle the ball. I think Jonathan Isaac's going to make it a bit of a muddier water in terms of the ball handling opportunities. I think there'll be a bit of a downtick in that. But I think if you're talking about a guy that you want to take it to the next level and has that opportunity, as long as you can stomach the free throw percentage, Gordon's that guy. He's kind of like the yin to JJ Redick's yang, if you like. This is the kind of guy that I want to take a punt on, because projections across the board could be too low, have the potential to be. At this price, I'm all in on Gordon, really. Again, the free throw percentage is and will be an issue, but there's enough upside there, across the board, that at 62, this is definitely my kind of guy.
100% in agreement. Upside, he has the potential to be a 1-1-1 guy. The athleticism, their points, rebounds, he is kind of a black hole, so you're not going to get too many dimes. But like the things that he can do physically are just amazing. He can pretty much do anything that he wants to do on the court. And, as you prefaced everything with, he's 22 years old, right? So he's going to develop, he's going to keep growing. So yeah, he's here for sure. It's just like, this is the textbook Craig play, right? Upside, baby, upside. So, but yeah, he's probably not going to be here, so it doesn't matter.
That's what he's going to go earlier than this, and he's a guy you might want to reach on. If you have these rankings and you're looking at him, but Gordon's sitting there, he's definitely a guy you could think about reaching on, and during the season, it's not going to look like a reach, like these guys said. I think when in doubt in a draft, take the guy who scores the most points. And when you get to this point in the draft where you're starting to look at Gordon, he's got the most potential to be like an in the 20s type scorer.
I mean, he was close to a top 10 guy in the very beginning. Remember, he was dropping like 40 a game and just shooting threes out of his, it was just insane, So, there's potential, but, a lot of inconsistencies too. So,
shooting out of his AA run. What about Ingles at 64? He was a surprise guy last season. We all thought, maybe he's a 3-point specialist or something, but he really showed a well-rounded game, with sort of a poor man's Luka Doncic type numbers. What do you guys think about Ingles? Is this just not score enough points to be that exciting, or is he someone you'd look at?
two points of contention, I think, with Ingles. I don't think it was for anyone really paying attention. I don't think it was that much of a surprise. Maybe to the level of effectiveness, but the role was always going to be there, and the opportunity for him to have that high floor fantasy season. And the thing that surprised me the most was the staying power with Ingles. I know he had that bit of a lull, maybe 3/4 of the way through the season, but I was surprised that, given his fat frame, that he was able to maintain it over the course of the season. Where I'm a little bit down on, this is too high for me, but where I'm a bit down is that I think Grayson Allen's got a role to play in this Jazz side, and I think it hurts Ingles. It wouldn't surprise me either if Royce O'Neal, maintains the level that he did last season. Jazz are going to fancy themselves for playoffs. Joe Ingles is quite fat. I think there's the opportunity to just protect him a little bit for the playoffs, if you like, because he's going to be a key player. As much from a mental perspective as it is the actual physical gifts for the playoffs. I think that there's just opportunity to give him a few minutes less. There's a little bit more competition. Like I said, I think Grayson Allen's going to have a real role to play. Maybe not right out the gate, but given halfway through the season. So I'm expecting a down tick for Ingles here.
It's really too bad. It's really too bad Royce O'Neal's not the fat one, because then we could call him Rolls Royce.
Hey, leave my Baylor boy alone.
O'Neal's good. You think Allen plays small forward, or you think he stays at shooting guard?
I think most of the minutes going to be at shooting guard, but I think the potential's there. He's got decent size, the athleticism, sneaky. Much sneakier actually than what I probably would have given him credit for a year ago. And he just feels like a real Jazz kind of player, doesn't he, Grayson Allen?
Yeah, for sure.
He's definitely white.
And I think that we're talking about a guy that was in college for 4 years. We're not talking about a one and done freshman that's got, much more learning to do. Obviously there is a lot of learning for Grayson Allen to do, but he's going to be ready to come in and contribute from the off. And I just think that, the West is tough. I don't think that we can say that the Jazz are going to be, sitting there resting players left, right, and centre. But I do think, given how important Ingles was to them in the playoffs, I think there is still going to be an element of protection there, I think. So that's just my perspective.
Okay. No, I can buy it. I think Allen will suck up most of the minutes, like when Donovan Mitchell needs a break. I think Ingles is going to get, plenty of minutes, but if he gets 2 or 3 minutes light, yeah, I'm not going to argue with that, because I do like Royce O'Neal a lot, and Cephalosha should be coming back as well, so he might suck up some minutes. But even if he plays 28, 29 minutes, the point ceiling is obviously lacking, but you're getting threes, rebounds, assists, and steals, so it's solid. But upside wise, he's definitely capped, but high floor, really high floor.
You've got him projected at 4.8 assists. Off the top of my head, I have no idea what his that seems high. What did he put up last year?
Yeah, 4.8, and he was 2.7 before, but that was on 7 minutes less. So he handles the ball a lot, right? He runs a lot of.
Oh yeah. No. I'm not. He can handle the ball. He always has been able to. It still feels high. 4.8 seems like a non-elite point guard, if you know what I mean. And I don't think the ball handling opportunities are going to be as frequent as it is for a lower end point guard. So,
his usage rate was 16%, which is pretty low actually.
Right?
Yeah. So you have a point there.
Given the style of play that the Jazz have, I don't really see a massive uptick in the usage. I think there's the potential for it, but I don't think, with a guy like Ingles on offense, I don't think that the usage is suddenly just going to jump up just because it was only at 16%.
I don't have a projected for. No, it does. I don't have a projected for increasing usage. I pretty much kept them status quo.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a ceiling. This is obviously a ceiling outcome, but I think 4 and 4 on the rebounds and assists. I think that's pretty fair. Yeah, even without any increases.
I'm going to jump in with my host duties here and say we spend a lot of time on the first 12 guys here. But I do want to get an opinion on these next four, really. Dwight Howard, Jonathan Isaac, Jaren Jackson Jr., Wendell Carter Jr. So we have one veteran who I consistently avoid in Dwight Howard, and then three rookies who, one, I'm probably going to end up with on a bunch of my teams, Jonathan Isaac, which I ended up drafting him today based on this ranking and his potential. And then Jaren Jackson Jr. and Wendell Carter Jr., who, coming in as rookies, it's hard to just anticipate what kind of impact these guys are going to have. What do you guys think? First, quickly on Dwight Howard, he could be available for a lot of people at this rank. When you look at his rebounds, points, and blocks, they're so tempting, but the free throw, is just, and you never know like what's his attitude going to be and how he's going to react being on a new team. Are you guys fading Dwight Howard this year, or do you believe in this potential resurgence?
I've been fading Dwight Howard for years. It just bores me. I won't have Howard on any of my teams. Obviously, it gets to a point where he has a price, right? So you've got to take him at some point. I'm not taking him in the 60s. The free throw percentage is obviously, always has been and always will be the red flag. I'm not convinced that Washington is the right fit for him from a fantasy perspective. I'm glad that they've moved on from Marcin Gortat. I think they needed to. Gone are the days where you had the John Wall Gortat pick and roll, with the emergence of the perimeter play. And I think that Howard's pretty much going to be there looking for scraps, and that's where his statistical output's going to come. So Howard's not for me, I'm afraid.
Okay, done. Avoid Dwight Howard. Okay, Jonathan Isaac, son, what do you think about Isaac? And Craig, I want your opinion on him as well. I think his numbers don't jump out at you, but the defensive stats have potential to be off the charts.
If you look at his per 36 numbers, they do really stand out. The blocks, steals, and 3-point percentage and 3 points over time. He's your scarce categorical darling, Jonathan Isaac, and if he can get 25, 26 minutes a game, he's going to put up. He's going to be really sneaky on player raters, just because of the categories that he does really produce in. But the summer league that he had, there was some real noticeable improvements in his game. His shot form looked different class from where it was last year. His creation off the dribble was much better. He was much more confident putting the basketball on the floor, and he, creating his own shots. It was like watching a different offensive player than what it was last year. I'm really, really high on him, and I think that this is just about the right range for this year for me.
Yeah, in complete agreement. Craig and I were going. We were having a circle jerk a couple of nights ago talking about Jonathan Isaac. Reference the per 36. 2.2 steals, 2 blocks last year. So the defensive stats give him a huge high floor. But the summer league, I saw the same things that Craig saw. Able to facilitate off pick and roll action, using his handle, get to the elbow, rise for the little mid-range J. They had him working down in the post. He was fading, step backs from the baseline, shooting over guys. He was even shooting 3-pointers, and surprisingly, he attempted 3.1 threes last year and made 35%. So he has that range. So you get that high floor from the defensive stats, and if you can get that jump in offense, and to be honest, I didn't even really give him huge bumps in that category as well. So there's a lot of meat on the bone here. I think we're all in agreement. We love him. Yeah, what's up?
Let's remember he was hurt last year as well. So everything he did statistically last year, he was doing whilst hurt. And when you're talking about a guy that's relying on the athleticism for his value, that's huge. So let's also remember that he's healthy now. The minutes are going to go up. He's healthy. He was one of the most raw guys coming out of college as well. He looked lost at times at Florida State. But it was all about potential, and he's really starting to show it.
Agreed.
Cool. What about Jaren Jackson Jr. and Wendell Carter? Are they going to have? I mean, based on where they're ranked here, they're going to end up on a lot of teams that are fans with Suns rankings. Are there was some news about that came out I think today or yesterday about Memphis wanting to bring Jaren Jackson Jr. along slowly. Does that concern you at all? And is Wendell Carter Jr. I mean, I of the two, I think Wendell Carter Jr. in my opinion is probably the safer fantasy bet. But with Jaren Jackson Jr. having the higher ceiling, coming back to the ceiling versus floor argument, what do you guys think, son?
I love both. I'm not too concerned about the Jaren Jackson use because, cream rises to the top. Like he balled out in the summer league. And, I remember during that time they were talking about playing him alongside Marc Gasol. So I think there's going to be plenty of minutes for him, when Gasol needs a rest and then even at the power forward right next to him. So I'm not really too concerned about minutes. I think they're just kind of saying that, maybe lower expectations or whatnot. But I mean, he does everything. You saw the 3-point stroke in the summer league, the blocks. He protects the rim. Great weak side help defender. He can rebound the ball. Like he looks like a really good player. As for Wendell Carter Jr., probably at some point, I mean, you still have Lopez there, but they may trade him or they may just sit him down the stretch. So he may start off slow, but I think as the season goes on, he's going to get more and more minutes. And he and Jaren Jackson are very similar, right? Like they're great shot blockers. Both rebound. I think Jaren Jackson has a little more polish and range in the offensive game, but outside of that, they're very, very similar players. What say you, Prospect Guru?
I have a little bit more concern in the short term with Jaren Jackson Jr. than you.
Okay. Right.
Like you, I love the player. I think the ceiling's super high, both fantasy and in real life. The issues that I have with JJJ is I'm not convinced yet about the offensive game at the next level. I still think there's a lot of work to be done. I was about to say Memphis State, Michigan State. He went missing for large periods of time, especially on the offensive end. He had a lot of foul trouble there, but it wasn't an easy system. He was often played out of position. But I think that people need to temper their expectations for this season at least a bit more. I see a lot of wild projections about he's going to finish here, he's going to finish there. The shot blocking's elite. Him and Mitchell Robinson were in a class of their own in terms of shot blocking. The way that he, his timing, he uses both hands just as comfortably as each other. Both strong and weak side shot blocking is just fantastic. And he's gonna have his value because of the shot blocking. But I think that the offense is a bit stale at times. I know he had his big game in Summer League with 29 points. I wasn't as impressed offensively as most people were with Jaren Jackson Jr. And I think that people fell in love with the 3-ball a little bit too much. The range is good, don't get me wrong, and it was encouraging to see him demonstrate the NBA range. But I think that 11 points seems maybe about the right kind of mark. But it wouldn't surprise me in his rookie season if he even had a little bit of a downtick on that, maybe 9 or 10.
Okay.
But yeah, long term, I love the guy, and I think the ceiling is very, very high. I think in the rookie season, I think he's probably going just a bit too higher in redraft leagues for me. Wendell Carter Jr., I really like him. Summer League was fantastic. The thing with WCJ that he does so many of the small things really, really well. He's almost like the high IQ ultra professional out there, and this is from a guy who was a freshman last year, and he's going to make a lot of people around him much better. And it's part of the reason why I like Lowry Markkinen so high. Wendell Carter Jr. is an absolute dream to Lowry. I mean, people seem to label Lowry as a bit of a where he just shoots the 3-ball. He'll get his points and decent percentages in the 3-ball, but people don't. Lowry Markkinen was actually surprisingly quite effective in the pick and roll as ball handler last year. I think someone like Wendell Carter Jr. is only going to help that. I think he had something like 0.96 points as the ball handler in the pick and roll last year, did Lowry, which sort of had him ranked as sort of like, good. So I think Wendell Carter Jr. is going to get his. It's going to be interesting how it plays out. Robin Lopez doesn't bother me so much. I think there's enough statistically there for Wendell Carter Jr. To hold value in this kind of range, especially in the shot blocking department. But like you said, just temper your expectations on the offense. But I think that the high IQ, the work ethic, I think that there's more potential there in the short term. I'm not talking about long term. Jaren Jackson Jr. is a better offensive prospect, probably long term. But in the short term, it wouldn't surprise me to see Wendell Carter Jr. maybe get 12, 13 points a game. So yeah, I like both guys. I'm probably more on board with Wendell Carter Jr. short term and Jaren Jackson Jr. long term, but like both guys.
Cool. So a few guys that jump out to me in the 70s. One, I mean, I have to mention Zach LaVine, just because he's a guy I always bring up as someone who can be an all-star potentially. I know you guys don't necessarily feel the same way. And then Batum, who I really like as a well-rounded guy who can get you some assists later in the draft, with good percentages, good threes, just a well-rounded guy there. And then finally, I'm going to throw three guys out to get your opinions on. Gallinari, who I seem to always end up with because he's so tempting late in the draft with his scoring ability. And when he does play, which is few and far between, he's just, he shows that potential of, rebounds plus the points, plus the percentages, plus the threes. What do you guys think about these three guys? Who would you most like to grab in the 7th round range or around the 70s range? And are any of these guys, are you avoiding any of these guys this year? Craig, I hope that wasn't too long of a question, but.
Right. So hold on. Batum, Gallinari, and
LaVine, Zach LaVine.
And LaVine. So basically you're talking about three guys that hurt a lot.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I've got no issues with taking in any of them in this range on a talent perspective. I'd probably play it a bit safer, to be honest with you, and shoot more for closer to the 82 games. If I was going to pick one of the three guys, it will probably be Nick Batum, I guess. But yeah, you're talking about guys that have the upside to be higher than this, much higher than this on any given season, provided they're healthy. So I think what you're basically saying is you're taking a punt on, one of these guys being healthy. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. Son, if you had to pick one of these three guys in this range, who would you put your team on?
Yeah, I'm with Batum as well. It's a higher floor, but then I think he contributes more in more categories. I think he had 2 triple-doubles last season. I've never been a big Zach LaVine guy. He's a black hole. He's a professional getter of buckets, but that's pretty much it, right? Maybe he'll get some steals, but other than that, it's like, I don't know, Wiggins-esque, maybe a little bit better than Wiggins. I shouldn't disrespect him like that. He's much better than Wiggins, but I'm just not a huge LaVine guy. Gallinari, he's just injured so much. I love his aggressiveness and ability to get to the line. And he shoots a high percentage, but absolutely no D stats, and you're not going to get any assists. So Batum for me as well.
I actually ended up with Batum and Gallinari, and the only reason I ended up with Gallinari is just because people were just avoiding him, and he just got to a point where I just couldn't pass on him I picked first, so I had 2 picks, and at the end of that, I forget which round it was on, but it was late enough where I was like, I just have to take a chance here as a utility guy. Yeah.
Double digit rounds?
Yeah, it was probably like the 9-10 border, like 9 going into 10, and I think I couldn't pass on Gallinari at that point. Although I might regret it, I don't know. Hopefully my bench is good.
Talk to me about Blake Griffin 77, DeMar DeRozan 79. I'm sure you expected it. Way too low for me.
Those guys will both be gone by then. Yeah.
DeRozan, yeah. Obviously, this is contextual to sort of the model that Sun uses.
Mhm.
I understand DeRozan's more of a where your team's at situational guy. His value can really fluctuate depending on the rest of your team. If you want the high volume free throw percentage, DeRozan's your guy. But I suppose that you take him in the third or fourth round, it can really suck the value if you've punted that category already. But I'm in on both these guys, and probably more so to the tune of late 30s, mid to late 30s. So considerably higher. What was your thinking behind having both ranked so low?
Okay, I'll start with Ricky Lake Griffin. The man just never blocks. Like, you're getting absolutely no D stats, absolutely none. He can, triple dub any night and he shoots the three. But yeah, I'm just not a fan of his game, and a lot of it is predicated on, especially on D, like effort, right? And yeah, there's just no effort there. He doesn't care. But past that, that's more of a subjective take on it. Just the numbers bear it out. He just does not provide any D stats, and that, to me, that knocks him down a lot. In terms of DeRozan, obviously the threes are going to come down. I bumped down his numbers across the board, shot attempts, usage. I do think that maybe there's a sneaky chance the assists may go up, but San Antonio, they play at, I think they were the third worst or third slowest pace last season, and I don't really see that increasing this year. And LMA is a usage hog, and I'm pretty high on DeJounte Murray. So DeRozan's still going to get his, but it's not going to be to the level that he's been at in the past.
I find I'm just trying to be subjective for the sake of being subjective.
No, go for it.
So you talk about Lowry Markkanen, is going to be weak on the D stats, and you got him at 51.
Yeah.
But Blake Griffin, we're talking about a guy that could easily put up 20 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, decent percentages. Yes, the turnovers might be a bit high, but that's the natural progression of handling the ball so much and having that high assist rate. To have him at 77 and Lowry at 51, with the same criticism, it seems a little bit absurd to me.
Well, it's fair. It's fair. The turnovers are a huge thing, but then Markkanen, has more D stats, and I think the potential for more is there. But just from a strictly number standpoint,
And
he's
more
giving
threes.
he's giving you more threes, and he's giving you more D stats as it is, and the turnovers by like almost a half, right? So that's huge.
You could argue 6.3 assists and 20 points or 20 points plus.
No doubt.
Game is huge as well,
no doubt.
Yeah, a high volume shooter though, right, with the field goal percentage.
Again, we're talking about what Blake offers you in terms of scarcity with those 6.3 assists you've got projected at, let's say 6. That's huge for me, much more so than 0.73 or turnovers. Again, it's that classic case of I feel I can make that up very, very easily later round streaming or whatever. I think 77 for what Blake can offer you is, for me, it's way too low.
That's fair. No, I totally get it. I totally get it. The numbers, the numbers are the numbers. But subjectively, I've soured on Blake over the years. But with that said, that probably baked into my, my projections from the get-go. But yeah, when the computer spit out, my subjectivity, that's where it landed. But yeah, I totally get where you're coming from, though.
Sure.
Yeah.
It just shows you how much a 0.2, 0.3 difference in certain categories can is the difference between 50 and 77.
Yeah, no, for sure. A lot of these guys are very close, and it comes down to like I said, preference, context, things like that. I mean, Craig makes great points. Blake can triple dub on any night, and he's a high usage guy, and there's definitely some upside there. But he's definitely not perfect. He's definitely lacking in certain categories. But yeah, a lot of these guys are very, very close, and I would have no problem if you flip flop some of them. But
Well, we've passed over the hour mark here, so I kind of had a few more guys. And Craig, if you see anyone, feel free to throw some names out too, or anyone you want to stick on there, son. But a guy I noticed who was available in my draft who was getting kind of tempting there was Willie Cauley-Stein. I know they have a lot of big guys in Sacramento right now. What are your guys' thoughts on him as sort of a like center number 2, maybe utility bench center?
The Harry Giles and Marvin Bagley Jr. They scare me in terms of Cauley-Stein's value. I think this was another thing. I mean, Son and I have been doing a lot of arguing the last few weeks. I think, in the absence of real basketball news, something that we were touching on was Sacramento Kings. And I think that they're now poised to really find some kind of identity by upping the pace. Relying on getting the best out of Fox by play at a much higher pace. They've got 2 bigs in Giles and Bagley Jr. who can really run the floor. I think it's going to hurt Cauley-Stein in terms of value. He'll still get his. He's a good enough player, especially on the defensive end. Guard multiple positions. He's still going to get a good a good amount of minutes. In terms of production, I worry a little bit, and so I've got him just outside the top 100 for me, and a lot of that is because I'm primarily quite high on the impact that Bagley and Giles can make in a more up-tempo Kings offense.
Yeah, Sacramento was a very tough team for me to project. I'm not sure who was more difficult, they or Cleveland, just because they have 5 power forwards, and I don't know. I mean, do you see Giles playing center, Craig?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Yes.
I even think to the point where I know that the Kings have talked about Bagley potentially playing the 3. I think Bagley's probably made for the centre position in the NBA these days. So yeah, I can see both of them. Maybe not right out the gate. Again, we're talking about Harry Giles as a guy with a lot of rust. Bagley's still got a lot of learning to do, primarily to not rely on just one hand. But I think that both of those are a big part of the Kings' future. And I think that over the course of a long NBA season, it's going to hurt Willie Cauley-Stein if both of those remain healthy. I definitely see the potential of both of those playing centre.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Like like in terms of how I see the lineups shaking out, like it's really tough. Like I think Fox is locked into the point guard position. Then, I mean, I had Bogdanovic at shooting guard, but I could see them going Hield at the 2 and Bogdanovic at the 3, right? Then I mean, like you just said, Bagley could go at the 3, which I don't think is right, but there's a possibility he goes there. You have Giles, Scal. Nemanja is probably going to get some minutes. Yeah, it's just tough. Like, yeah, if Bagley and Giles, play the 5 and they go small and they want to go up more up tempo, then yeah, Willie can't be up here because I have him down for 28 minutes. And one of the main reasons is because I kind of have him and Kufis kind of locked into the center. I didn't really project. I think Giles, I put like maybe 3 to 4 minutes, at center. But not much. I didn't really factor them in too much into that. So it was a tough one. In terms of the pace, and that's another thing. I mean, it's been proven that they're going to play at a slow pace. And it's tough for me to project something when I don't see something, right? So I kind of need to see it before I can. But
the personnel just lends itself to it, doesn't it?
It does. I agree. Yeah,
it would feel absolutely criminal for them to play at the same pace as they did last year, given the personnel that they have now. Because you're basically saying that this is our strength. This is, we've got, probably the fastest point guard in the league. We've now got 2 bigs that can, that are really athletic, can really run the floor as well as, most bigs in the league. And it would be like, just not using them. You know, it'd be like saying this is what our identity could be, and we're going to do the exact opposite. You know,
Agreed,
unless
but it's the Kings, right? And it's the reason
well,
why
yeah, but
they're the Kings.
there's
Right?
no motivation for tanking this year, is there?
Yeah, true.
So let's go out. Let's find our identity. Let's play within our strengths. You know, what are our elite strengths? You know, what can we say that we do at a level at the best of the rest of the NBA? And it's the potential that they have in transition, really, and the athleticism that they now in the front court. That's what it's got to be, surely. I mean, like you said, and you brought the point up, this is reliant on the Kings coaching, you know, and the Kings decision making being sound, you know, and that is always a presumption. And you know,
Here's my thing. Like, there's this guy, Sigmund Blue, for you know, fantasy football. Like, his main, you know, phrase is the assumption of rational coaching, and I think that's perfectly applicable here. A lot of times things should happen a certain way, and that's the logical way it should happen, but you know, they just decide not to for some reason. Like, for example, like last year they drafted Aaron Fox, right? Like, we all know, everyone knows who Fox is and what type of, you know, system he, you know, is best suited for. Yet, you know, they go out and get, you know, Vince Carter, right? Zach Randolph, right? So, like, you know, their actions even from last year, you know, showed that, you know, like, what are they doing, right? So I'm with you. Like, I want to see them play up tempo.
I kind of get that, though. I kind of got it. You know, you forget George Hill as well being the big one, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But Fox was the right personality for destination fucked. Do you know what I mean? It was the right face to have at that particular point, and you know, it's season one. It was an opportunity for him to learn. I think a lot of people would have been disappointed statistically at what he'd done, but the flashes were there, and the style of play didn't suit him. I get that, but there was a bit more, I don't know, motivation to not do well, if that made sense. So I kind of got not doing it then. I just now, you know, they're not going to have their pick. I don't. Everything seems in place for them to take a step forward, and I get what you're saying, but I think that they need to now really, you know, look at what they have and say, actually, we do have some elite skill sets within this, and we've got to play within it to move forward.
Yeah, I hope you're right, because on paper, yeah, it's a very exciting roster. I hope they kind of, you know, unleash Fox a little bit and just let him do his thing, and let these guys run and gun, because in the half court set, you know, I don't know, it's going to be ugly. You know, I think they're going to be best in transition.
Yeah, agreed.
So I want to wrap this up with a question to you guys that I ran into at the end of my draft, and you know, trying to come up with like a bench. You know, at this point in most drafts, unless you're in a really deep league, you're drafting for your bench or for the future. So I was coming down to which kind of young point guard do I want to have on my bench, just because assists are kind of hard to come by sometimes on the waiver wire. And it really came down. I mean, Chris Dunn had just gotten taken off the board, but it was a deeper league. So, you know, there's guys like Chris Dunn, Brogdon, Fox, Reggie Jackson, Dinwiddie. You know, is there any point guard, any assist guy kind of at the end of the draft that you would target over another?
Well, you can take Brogdon out for me. I don't see. Brogdon's another one of those, I think, really safe, boring picks, if you like, that isn't going to win you a league, but probably isn't going to lose it either. Give me Fox out of that bunch. You know, if Dunn's gone, you're looking for assists, give me Fox. I want to see what this Kings side can do with pace. And, you know, let's give the Kings a chance to actually think rationally here. So, yeah, give me Fox. Let's remember, Fox last year, he was coming off a one and done season as a freshman. These are really, really super young guys. You know, it takes many guys, sometimes 2-3 years, to really have any kind of, you know, impact in the NBA level. You think guys like Gobert, Bradley Beal, Otto Porter Jr., you know, they're just three that spring to mind. It didn't happen in their rookie season. You know, they weren't ready. So give me Fox. I'm a believer in the abilities. You know, he's got good size. The speed is phenomenal. I think he's a fantastic player. And, you know, it will get there in time. You know, why not have a look this season?
Is Lonzo Ball's gone?
Lonzo Ball's gone at this point. Somebody took him higher. I believe that's going to happen in most drafts, just strictly off name value.
Malik Monk, that's another guy as well.
I did get. Hey, and you'll be proud of me. I did get Malik at the end. I got Malik and Mitchell Robinson down at the end of the draft. So
I think there's two guys that stand out for me, like strictly assists, right?
Yes.
Is that just strictly assists?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, I'm thinking point guard. So, you know, I do like threes with my point guards. You know, which is why I'm not huge on Murray. But.
I mean, I like DeJounte Murray, but I think if you're just looking for the point guard assists, I think Fultz is the guy for me.
Really?
You know, I thought that he was gonna end up much higher. Because I do think that his shooting improved a lot this year, and you know I think they're going to give him a lot of minutes. But I think what knocks him down is you know, lack of threes is the main thing. But I mean, he's good. He's really, really good. You know, and you know he just, you know, last year things just got into his head, and you know I get it. You know, it's tough, right? So as long as he's on the court. You know, man, like his dribble, like he can break down any defense. Playing along those guys, like, you know, there's gonna be a lot of assists to have. Yeah, I think
he was the number one pick for a reason, right? I mean, he was fantastic. He really was. Exactly. And all the reports coming out of the Drew Hanlon camp are really, really positive, aren't they? And we're not just talking about from the 76ers. I know guys like Jason Tatum have come out and said how great that. Fultz has looked this summer, you know, Drew Hanlon himself. There's a lot of really, really positive reports coming out there. And I think that there was a lot of, you know, it must have been tough for the kid, mustn't it? You know, her and then, you know, the shot form just completely lost. And the pressure of being the number one pick and then obviously the calls of bust and everything. I think that's a great pick. Yeah, I'm fully on board with you there, son.
I like that. I think you could get him cheap, right? Where did he go? Do you know where he went last year?
He went, I mean, in a normal 12-team league, he's gonna be there at the end. In the 14-team league, him and Ball, I think a lot of name value with Fultz and Ball are gonna have them go a little bit higher than they probably should.
See, I disagree. I think that you can be aggressive on both and be justified with it.
Sure. Well, yeah, that too. You know, but it just depends on how early someone's going on, based on name value.
Where are you taking Ball and Fultz, Craig?
Again, in a vacuum, it's you know, dependent on what I've got. The rest of my team. I've got no issues taking Lonzo Ball. In the 5th round, 6th round, I've got no issues with that whatsoever. And a lot of that's going to be, I know that the assist numbers are going to be elite. The rebound is going to be above average. And the steals are sneaky. Yep. The steals are really sneaky.
Yep.
And Markelle Fultz, I'm quite happy to take inside my top 100. You know, maybe in the 90s range. I think that's one of those picks that, you know, if it doesn't pay off, you know, I've got no issues on a 9th or 10th round pick not panning out. You know, I'm probably going to be shooting for enough upside elsewhere that I'm going to make up, you know, multiple rounds of value in other guys. But you know, give me the guy that's got the superstar ceiling shot. That's what I'm interested in. Because guys like, you know, if you draft a Donovan Mitchell or Jason Tatum, they win you late. They win your leagues, you know, not your Reddicks and whoever else it was that we talked about. So I've got no issues taking Fultz in the 90s, and if it works out, great. If it doesn't, you know, what have I really lost, you know? So yeah, I'm high on Fultz this year. Might be a year too early, but people just forget how talented this guy was at Washington. You know, really, really talented point guard. Something went wrong.
Bias. Yeah, recency bias.
Totally. Something went wrong. You know, he's by all accounts working with the best guy, isn't he, with Drew Hanlon? And the reports coming out are good. I know sometimes you've got to take a lot of the reports with a pinch of salt and look at the motivations behind them. But we're talking about multiple reports from all angles here. So yeah, I'm with you. I think that's a great call.
Yeah, and my whole liking a high floor versus a high ceiling kind of goes out the window when you get later in the draft. Then I start looking for high side. Like I took Monk and Mitchell Robinson and Jonathan Isaac later on in the draft. I just like to go safe early.
Yeah, late in the draft, you have to go upside. Like I'm all for that. Where it gets tricky is, after you built your foundation, maybe like when you start getting into like the middle rounds.
Yeah.
That's where I think there's a really legitimate debate, right? Because
to reach or not to reach,
it's very valuable. Yeah, floor is very valuable there. But it all comes down to, like we say, personal preference and team context. But yeah, when you get down to the the hundreds, like 90s and hundreds, like you want upside. Yeah, there's no point taking, like those, the high floor guys.
Absolutely. Well, guys, we're coming up here a little over an hour. Pleasure as always talking to you guys.
We got to get to one guy.
Oh yeah.
We got to get to Corey Brewer.
Oh yes. Okay, we'll end on Corey Brewer.
Yeah. There's been a lot of dudes, coming at me. It's fair, and it's making really good points, and that's what makes our community awesome, right? It's different perspectives, different perceptions, and we're all able to like discuss things. So, I started doing these late July, early August, and so during that time, I mean, just the way I kind of divvied out the pie, I thought Brewer would, resign.
I know Sun made multiple calls to Brewer's agent that weren't returned, so it's totally not his fault.
No, I mean, you can't, we're not, we don't predict the future, right? All we can do is just have our opinions and make our best guess, right? So, my whole projections was all predicated on Brewer coming back because, although Roberson was coming back, he's coming back from a pretty brutal injury. So I just didn't really see him having a huge impact. And Ferguson's still raw. And, Luau Cabarro, he's young and raw as well. So, OKC is in, championship mode, right? They're a legitimate contender. So, a lot of my thinking was that, Brewer would come back, especially because, he and Donovan have, a history, a really good relationship, and he's cheap, right? And one way that OKC could have done it was Kyle Singler's contract. They either trade him or they waive him and then stretch him out, right? And I think if they do that, that saves them like 24 million in tax and salary, and it opens up a roster spot because they're full at 15 right now. So that's where my thinking was, like, in terms of like the 3-point shooting and all the other numbers. Like career wise, he's like 30% or under. And last year, in a limited sample size for sure, it's 34%. I think there was one year back in Minnesota where he was in that 34% range over the course of an 82 game season. But more often than not, like, he's just not a good shooter. But like when he was on the Lakers, like, I was really impressed with him. Like, not just defensively, like he was like hustling, he was getting out of it, and he was knocking down the corner three. Like, his shot looked good to me, his stroke looked good. And then when he went to OKC, it was the same thing. And I really liked what I saw. So, obviously, I may be wrong because he hasn't been re-signed yet. So, I did put an update into the top 100, and I, in a few weeks, I'm gonna release the full list. Like, it's gonna be sortable, and I did take him out. If he does re-sign, then I'll reconfigure everything then. But I did take him out of that, and what I did was I gave Roberson a few more minutes, and then I gave Ferguson and Cabarro more minutes, and I think I gave a slight bump to Abrines. So that's kind of how I divvied up that pie. So as it looks right now, looks like I'm gonna be wrong, and I have no problem with that. Like, I'm wrong. I'm wrong plenty of times. So that's fine. But I just want to give people like
Accountable, isn't it?
yeah,
That's all it is.
I have no problem. I just want to give people like I guess a window into what I was thinking. Maybe maybe I was thinking incorrectly. That's fine. That happens. But at least that's just where I was coming from on that. So
That sounded very, very much like I did not have sexual relations with this woman speech.
That was very political. Yes.
Yeah. No, we were at it the other night with Corey Brewer, weren't we? And I think the sort of point of contention I made was, even if he does sign, I think I'm much more of a believer in the defensive capabilities of Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot and Terence Ferguson actually getting them more minutes than you actually think as well. So
they're so young and raw. That's why.
They are young and raw, but from a defensive standpoint, TLC is or run TLC. He's already an NBA level defender, and I think that, like you said, that they are in championship sort of mode, win now mode. But that doesn't mean that a guy like TLC isn't going to play a really important part for them off the bench and some decent minutes, because the defensive game is good enough to complement that of high usage rate guys like Russell Westbrook, I think. So I think there's a lot of rotations where a guy like TLC actually will have a really positive impact. He can still shoot the three, but it's mainly his defense which is going to get minutes. But yeah, I'm out on Brewer, shall we say?
No, that's fair. That's totally fair. It's I'm probably gonna end up looking really dumb on this one, but that's just how I was thinking at the time.
We all make bold calls. Sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't, didn't you?
Hey, when you're making hundreds of players months before the season starts, I mean, there's going to be a couple missed calls there, but I mean, for the most part, having done a draft early, I feel like when I look at my team, that it's way better set up for this season, because I think most people at this point who are drafting are still going off what happened last season and not projecting people very well for the next season based on their new teams, any new personnel on their teams, rookies, things like that. So I think, by having the rankings out this early, you're getting people prepared. We're getting these arguments going early on, which is when by the time people listen to Razzball and listen to this podcast and read your rankings, get to their drafts, they're going to be more prepared than anybody else. There's no doubt about that.
The other thing you've got to remember is how difficult it really is when you're doing the rankings. You're doing a projection for every single player. You're then sticking them in, some kind of order which makes sense in your head in terms of the return value, and got different concepts. It isn't an easy task. Yep. Any time that we do have somebody outside of the consensus, shall we say, we do leave, i.e. in this case, Corey Brewer, it does seem rather extreme example, but we do leave ourselves wide open for criticism. Criticism is healthy, like I say to Son all the time. We debate about all sorts of things. We don't agree on everything, and we have all kinds of, debates going on in the backgrounds over players, but it's healthy, it's subjective, it makes us think, and any time it makes us think outside of the norm, it's got to be healthy, right? Even if we don't necessarily agree.
For sure.
Yeah, on that note, I'd want to say let's keep the debate going in the comments section, whether on the basketball.razzball.com website, whether on our Up and Rising YouTube channel. Leave us your comments, any comments you have on what we're talking about, anything you want to talk about, us to talk about in future episodes, let us know. We'll link our Twitter accounts. You can hit us up on there at any time. Thank you, guys. Any last words until next week?
No, it's always a pleasure, gentlemen. Have a good night.
Yeah, latest, guys.
All right, same here. Good night, guys.